They've read the books. They've watched the YouTube videos. They know compound interest works. They have money sitting in their checking account earning nothing, and they still can't pull the trigger. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't want wealth. They just freeze, and they've been frozen for years. Today, we're exploring the psychology of people who fear investing even when they want wealth. Not people who can't afford to invest, people who have the money but can't move it. What's actually happening in their minds? And why does knowledge about investing never translate into action? Here's what neuroscience reveals. The fear of losing money activates your brain's pain centers more intensely than the prospect of gaining money activates your pleasure centers. When someone who fears investing imagines putting $10,000 into the market, their amygdala doesn't calculate potential returns. It simulates catastrophe, the money disappearing, the regret, the shame of having made a stupid decision. This isn't logical analysis, it's threat detection. But here's where it gets interesting. This response has nothing to do with actual market risk. Imagine having money you don't need right now. You know intellectually that inflation is eroding it. You know logically that invested money historically grows. But when you open that brokerage app, your chest tightens, your stomach drops, your finger hovers over the button and won't press it. You're not being cautious. You're experiencing a physiological fear response to something that hasn't happened yet and probably never will. Behavioral economists have discovered something fascinating. People who fear investing often weight potential losses 2 to 3 times more heavily than equivalent gains. If they might lose $1,000, that psychological pain outweighs the pleasure of potentially gaining $3,000. Their brain isn't calculating probabilities. It's protecting against emotional devastation. And in that calculation, doing nothing feels safer than doing something, even when doing nothing guarantees loss to inflation. Now let's talk about something deeper. The illusion of control. People who fear investing don't just want good odds. They want guarantees. They want to know exactly what will happen. And investing, by definition, can't give them that. But here's what people who fear investing actually experience. Money in a savings account feels controllable. They can see it. They can touch it. They know exactly what's there. The number doesn't jump around. It's stable. It's certain. It's safe. Money in the market? That's chaos. The number changes every second. It can drop 20% in a month. Headlines scream about crashes. They're not holding money anymore. They're holding anxiety. And before you say they just don't understand investing, stop. Many people who fear investing actually understand it perfectly. They've read the books about index funds and dollar cost averaging. They know historical returns average 7 to 10% annually. They understand the concept. What they can't tolerate is the uncertainty between now and historical average eventually. Think about it. How do you emotionally handle watching $10,000 become $8,000, even temporarily? How do you sit with that discomfort for months, maybe years, trusting it will recover? For people who fear investing, this isn't a practical question. It's an existential one, because that temporary loss doesn't just represent money, it represents proof that they made a mistake. And mistakes with money feel like moral failures, not learning opportunities. Here's where the psychology gets uncomfortable. For many people, investment fear isn't about the market. It's about their relationship with money itself. They didn't grow up with wealth. Money was scarce. Every dollar was precious. And the unspoken family rule was, you don't risk what you can't afford to lose. Except now they can afford to lose some, but the nervous system hasn't updated the script. Picture this. You're standing at the edge of something your parents never had access to. Wealth building, compound growth, financial security. But taking that step feels like betraying where you came from. Like you're being reckless with something sacred. This is the hidden cost. Not the market risk, but the psychological weight of moving beyond your family's financial ceiling. But here's what's rarely discussed. This isn't actually about money knowledge. It's about nervous system regulation. Because the same person who can't invest $5,000 into a low-risk index fund, they'll spend $5,000 on a car repair without blinking. They'll drop $3,000 on a vacation. But putting money into the market triggers a completely different fear circuit. The real question isn't why don't you invest? It's what does investing mean to you emotionally? For some, it means becoming the kind of person who could lose it all and look foolish. For others, it means leaving their tribe behind and entering a world where they don't belong. The money is just the surface. The identity threat is the real barrier. Now let's address the weight that nobody talks about, the burden of choosing. When money sits in a savings account and earns nothing, that's the default. That's what happens automatically. There's no decision to make, no responsibility to carry. But the moment you invest, you've made an active choice. And active choices create accountability. People who fear investing aren't avoiding opportunity. They're avoiding the psychological weight of being responsible for the outcome. Because if they invest and it goes badly, they can't blame circumstances. They can't blame the system. They chose this. They did this. And for someone already carrying shame about money, that responsibility feels unbearable. Here's the paradox. The people who say they want wealth are often the same ones who can't tolerate the emotional exposure that building wealth requires. They want the result without the vulnerability of trying. But wealth isn't built on certainty. It's built on calculated risk plus time. And calculated risk requires accepting that you might feel stupid temporarily while being smart long-term. People who successfully invest have made peace with this tension. People who fear investing are still trying to find a path to wealth that doesn't require emotional discomfort. That path doesn't exist. So what's really happening when someone fears investing even though they want wealth? They're not financially illiterate. They're not irrational. They're not even really afraid of the market. They're afraid of the emotional experience of uncertainty, the identity shift of becoming someone who takes financial risk, and the responsibility of having actively chosen something that might not work out. And here's what nobody wants to acknowledge. Knowledge doesn't fix this. More education about compound interest won't override a nervous system that learned money equals survival. More data about historical returns won't dissolve the shame of potentially looking foolish. What actually works? Starting so small that the emotional stakes become manageable. Investing $100, then another 100, not because small amounts will make you rich, but because your nervous system needs proof that you can survive the uncertainty. Are you someone who fears investing? What's the real reason you hesitate? Is it the money or what the money represents? Drop a comment and let's talk about what's actually stopping you. Subscribe for more psychology that explains why our financial behaviors are never really about money. They're about identity, safety, and the stories we inherited. One reframe, one rule, one move. Reframe. Investing isn't about being smart with money. It's about tolerating temporary uncertainty for long-term security. Rule. Start so small that failure wouldn't hurt. Your nervous system needs evidence that you can survive market fluctuations before it will let you scale up. Move. Open a brokerage account this week. Don't fund it yet. Just create it. Normalize the interface before you add money to it.